SpaceX CEO Elon Musk has long dreamed of building a colony on Mars. It would be self-sustaining, home to 1 million people, and would help mankind evolve into a multi-planet species. It is Musk's most ambitious objective, and it might keep him busy for the next 3 decades. But the real question is Mars colonization really possible? Or is Musk being too ambitious? For that, we would need to understand his genius plan. So, without further ado, let's find out what's being cooked in that brilliant mind. The transformation of mankind into a multi-planet species is Musk's most ambitious goal. He has compiled a list of justifications for why people would wish to spread out into the cosmos over the years. He frequently mentions the idea that a catastrophe on Earth may mean the end of civilization, but that if it can establish a foothold on another planet, like Mars, humanity may survive. Beyond the worst-case scenario of climate change, a surprise meteor strike could also wipe out humanity. According to Musk, who stated on Twitter in November 2021 that although Earth is approximately 4.5 billion years old, life is still not multiplanetary, and it is extremely uncertain how much time is left for it to become so. According to Musk, one of the reasons for humanity's expansion is that we are the protectors of life. The species we cherish cannot construct spacecraft, but we can, and we can take them with us. He believes nearly 50 years have passed since the last time that people visited the moon. That's too lengthy. We must establish a permanent presence there. This time, it should be a sizable facility that is continuously inhabited. To become a spacefaring civilization and multi-planet species, one needs first establish a colony on Mars. Musk declared his intention to build 1,000 starships over 10 years and to deliver 1 million people to Mars by the year 2050. The first person to set foot on Mars may do so in 2029, according to him. Additionally, SpaceX is developing starships that can be quickly recycled, revolutionizing space travel and enabling fleets of them to sail between planets. Shortly, subject to regulatory permission, he expects the Space Corporation to launch the Starship into orbit for the first time. Mars colonization, however, is not a task for the weak of heart. It's critical to stress that life on Mars will not be glamorous, especially at first. Instead, it'll be risky, claustrophobic, challenging, and labor-intensive. Living in Antarctica would be quite tough compared to Mars, where the average temperature is negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Mars has an average temperature of negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit. The surface of Mars is rough and dotted with canyons and volcanoes. In addition, the planet's gravity is roughly 1/3 that of Earth's, and its atmosphere is too thin for people to breathe. The low air pressure on Mars would cause a human without appropriate equipment to perish on the planet in a matter of minutes. However, Musk still desires to go forward. Musk desires to establish a whole metropolis on Mars. The billionaire projected in 2019 that it would take 1 million tons of cargo and cost between $100 billion and $10 trillion to establish a self-sustaining metropolis on the globe. SpaceX would use a hypothetical ticket price of $100,000 to calculate a pricing point for future rockets to Mars that would be reasonably attainable for the majority of people. But additional difficulties still are ahead. Mars has a gravity that is only 38% as strong as Earth's, a dominant carbon dioxide atmosphere, and a surface that is too frigid for human survival. Additionally, the atmosphere on Mars is comparable to just 1% of the atmosphere at sea level on Earth. Not just that, the climate on Mars could not be suitable for people either. Mars's typical temperatures range from 35 degrees Celsius to negative 143 Celsius. The planet's surface also has an average temperature of negative 63 degrees Celsius. How can the world be warmed? According to Musk, terraforming Mars would be the equivalent of nuking it. The hypothetical process of purposefully transforming the atmosphere, temperature, surface topography, or ecology of a planet, moon, or other body to be comparable to the climate of Earth to make it livable by Earth-like life is known as terraforming or terraformation. But how does Musk want to terraform it? Musk proposed nuking the poles in 2015. Terraforming Mars is an enormous task. It may take 3,500 nuclear weapons per day to raise Mars's atmospheric pressure to breathing levels and melt the planet's ice caps, releasing carbon dioxide that is then trapped as greenhouse gases. But there is one major flaw in such a strategy. The resulting radiation would also render the surface uninhabitable. Elon Musk suggested that by detonating nuclear bombs over Mars's polar caps, we may terraform the planet, since the explosion would occur above the poles in space. He claimed that radiation would not be a problem. However, the heat release would cause the frozen carbon dioxide to evaporate, warming the planet's atmosphere and melting the water ice. He offered the other points he had in mind in the subsequent remarks to further clarify his position. Musk claimed that his plan was to cover the areas with 2 miniature pulsating suns. He plans to periodically launch a huge fusion bomb over the poles to produce little blinking suns, since our sun itself is a massive fusion explosion. Explorers may travel to Mars, recharge using materials discovered there, and then fly back to Earth thanks to the Starship's use of liquid oxygen and methane as a fuel, rather than the rocket propellant used in the Falcon 9. Even deeper into space, astronauts may go while constructing a network of recharging stations that would connect to several planets. Most people thought Musk's intentions to settle on Mars would lose steam once SpaceX became a serious player in the space industry. They have not, though. Instead, Musk keeps investing more in the red planet. He repeats his 2 primary points like a mantra. The lifeboat hypothesis is one. If a catastrophic disaster wiped off civilization on Earth, a metropolis on Mars would guarantee the species' existence. The excitement of space exploration is the second justification. 1 million people will live in the city, according to him. The first Starship that was supposed to be launched in 2022. Following that, the first residents would arrive in 2024 aboard 2 cargo and 2 crew starships. These would concentrate on the propellant factory, an initial base, water, and energy. 6 starships would then depart for Mars in 2026. They would have enough mass to finish building the city's initial phases, the factory that makes propellants, solar panels, and everything else required to harvest flammable materials, obtain water, and remove CO2 from the atmosphere. To ensure that the colony may truly become somewhat self-sufficient, Martian pioneers will also need to design and install recycling programs, landing pads, dwellings, greenhouse gases, and further life support programs. As additional starships depart for and arrive on Mars, the metropolis will grow steadily. The city would start off as a collection of bases and then spread out. Responding to a question about what life on Mars will look like early on, Musk wrote in a tweet, "Life in glass domes at first, eventually terraformed to support life, like Earth." The city's population must include individuals from all areas of life, and not only technical professionals like scientists, researchers, and engineers, if it is to be really self-sustaining. Terran immigrants will probably need to pay for the expense of the space journey out of pocket, or with a loan to travel to the colony. When they could not afford the price of a ticket to the New World, some individuals in the past were forced into indentured servitude until the loan was repaid. Although obviously not the finest way to begin new life on Mars, if drawn entirely voluntarily, this may be the most typical way for the majority of the new inhabitants to do so. The Martian supercolony's nascent economy will benefit greatly from an infusion of a sizable willing workforce because labor would likely be in limited supply in the colony's early years. One of the next phases would be to put up administrative mechanisms to really run the city, once all the fundamental requirements for a long-term human presence have been established. SpaceX will adhere to a set of self-governing principles that'll be established during the Martian colony, rather than recognizing any international law on Mars. Elon Musk seems to have very carefully included a phrase stating that SpaceX would establish its own set of regulations on Mars, in terms of the contract for Starlink satellite internet services. For services delivered on Mars, or while traveling there via Starship or another colonization spaceship, the parties acknowledge that Mars is a free planet, and that no Earth-based government has jurisdiction or sovereignty over Martian operators, as stated in the Starlink conditions of the agreement. So the conflicts will be resolved by self-governing rules that were created in good faith at the time of Martian colonization. Starlink satellite constellations would likely be used to offer internet access for this futuristic colony built by SpaceX. More than 800 satellites have already been launched by Elon Musk's SpaceX to provide broadband internet on a worldwide scale. However, it is stated in the Declaration of Rights and Responsibilities of Humanity in the Universe that space would be seen as being free for all and to all. However, Neil deGrasse Tyson once asserted that a whole genre of warfare may be completely eliminated by planet-hopping technology. That's because people would be able to go farther and extract resources that are farther away. Therefore, we're truly unsure of what the future holds. All we can do is dream for the future and leave the rest to the richest man on Earth.